Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. This is a Roaming Prepper channel. I'm your host, Pete, and today I'm going to follow on, or do a follow-on video from the video I did on Friday from the shooting range. I was talking about keeping your skill sets up to date. So I'm going to be right back, and let's talk about some fundamental skills that all of us need to make sure we have in our heads, just in case. I'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you for coming to check out the video. As always, if you have any questions after the fact, feel free to throw them into the comments below. If I don't get to them during the premiere chat, every now and then, unfortunately, duty calls, I get called for work or some other commitment, and I don't make my own premieres. I don't do that by plan. That just, it is what it is. You guys probably all understand. So if you joined me last Friday, I actually did an impromptu live at the local firing range where I set up a bunch of steel targets and was plinking them with a .22 rifle. Decided to designate one of the .22s I have as my truck gun. And we had a conversation in the chat and on the video about what the best firearm would be for your for a truck or a car, a .22 or an AR or a 12 gauge, a bolt action. Each has their pros and cons. But what I want to do in this video is follow up from the general conversation of skill sets. This is important. I had not shot the .22 in probably 6 to 8 months, that particular little rifle. I wanted to be sure the sights were still on, the weapon functioned, and that I was competent with it, that I remembered the controls, I remembered where the aim point was, just to get the general feel. Now, that sounds silly. Any experienced shooter would probably say, well, you should know how your weapon handles. But you keep in mind, a lot of us own firearms, we use them for only specific reasons, and we may not use them all the time. I wanted to put that .22 in, before I put it in my truck as my emergency go-to little rifle. I wanted to be sure I went on the range, I knew how it performed, its rate of fire, and I did fast shooting, slow shooting, what its accuracy was, and how much the bullet dropped at distance. These are all relevant. I hadn't shot the .22 in forever, and I was hitting targets, 50, 75 yards out with iron sights, and my vision's not all that great, and I don't have the motor skills I used to 20 years ago, but I'm still hitting the targets. It's good for me to know how that rifle performs, and I'm pretty much at this point confident if I load it and I aim at a target within a reasonable distance, I'm going to plink it. But that goes to the greater skill sets, and skill sets sometimes require practice. And there are a few things I wanted to go through just to refresh us on those skill sets. So first and foremost, if you have any kind of travel, you should have an emergency first aid kit, and you should inspect it at least every 6 months, if not more often. It depends on your schedule. Now, in this particular bag, and I picked this bag up a while ago, I basically did a DIY kit. In the kit, I have, a folding knife, I have, a glove and face mask to prevent blood or debris from hitting me in the face. But I also have my gauze, I have my scissors, I have some generic meds such as over-the-counter painkillers, as well as Benadryl, antihistamines if someone's going into some kind of allergic reaction. You'd be shocked how many places I go that I am the only person with any semblance of a first aid kit on his person. That includes clay shoots. I've literally gone to clay shoots and I have the ouch pouch on one side of my range bag and a tourniquet on the other. And people ask me, well, why do you have those? And I'm saying, well, we've got 150, 200 people out here with firearms shooting at things moving around. Someone could get hurt, and it could just be an accident, a misfire, a weapon blows up, you just get a bad ricochet off a pellet and it hits somebody in the face. You want to be able to handle that. Now, to go with this, I recommend everyone take a first aid course. My cert is out, but I've taken first aid, stop the bleed, bloodborne pathogens, a lot of these kind of trainings. My company stopped doing them during the Rona. They're going to start again as soon as they're available. I'm going to go back and start doing my first aid certs again. Just a good skill set to have. It doesn't have to be any kind of SHTF either. It can be something as simple as you went to the playground and a kid ate shit and now they're bleeding. Or an adult crashes on a bike because a dog cuts them off. I've seen all sorts of stuff. Don't only have the gear, practice with it, at least take a class so you understand what goes where. And every now and then inspect your bags, make sure that the product is good, it didn't get wet, didn't get contaminated, it's not corroded, heat damaged, whatever. So important. While we're on the topic of first aid, another skill set, I recommend everybody have a Israeli bandage or a tourniquet. Now, those of you who are unfamiliar with an Israeli bandage, it's basically a long gauze bandage with what looks like an anchor point on one end, and it was actually designed by the Israelis. You put it around your arm. I'm not going to open this one. You get it into the anchor point, and then you reverse, and it basically applies pressure to a point wound up to a couple of inches wide. It was meant originally for soldiers to administer self-care if they were shot or stabbed. They could apply that and at least bandage their own wound, or a teammate could bandage their wound quickly until you could get them to an ambulance. But it does require some practice. The last time I opened one up, I hadn't used one in a while. And, you know, I had to play with it a little bit. And then I went and showed Sassy how to do it as well. So just so at least it's been seen before. But I do recommend, if you buy a set of these, be prepared to open one and practice with it. And then practice with the family. And again, I've said it before, if you practice with kids, make it fun. Put a little red mark on one of the kids and say, okay, you know, sister is hurt, so I want you to put the bandage on your sister. And then do it the other way. Okay, your brother's hurt. Have sister do it to brother. You guys get the drill. Husbands and wives, if you have nothing better to do on a date night and you're stuck at home, or rainy night, whatever the case may be, go through your first aid kit. Because if the only person who knows first aid and how to use an Israeli is the one who goes down, and everyone else is sitting there deer in the headlights, that's not a good situation. So make sure at least everyone has seen the material and understands more or less how it works. Another example, this is my park pack, and this is a Rebo Tactical park pack. It's actually a hydration pack. It's meant for bikers. It has that thing here for the helmet, and I use it. It's like my general pack. I've owned this thing for about 5 years. It's probably the best money I've spent. Short of 511 gear themselves, this is probably one of the best bags I've gotten online. And I actually have two. I use my computer bag as one of these, so make sure you check your gear too. And I also, again, you find brands that work. But the Skillsets, again, make sure the bag fits. Now, I wear this every other day when I go for my walks or my runs. But inspect the zippers, inspect your straps, the buckles. Make sure it's not overly decaying. And guys, don't be cheap. If it's really starting to fall apart, it's time to retire it. Get a replacement and then move everything to the new one and move on. But again, the skill set among things, maintenance. Not just for firearms, maintenance for your equipment like bags, straps, stuff like that. Speaking earlier, the tourniquet. I like to pre-fold. I leave this in my park pack. I actually have one in the door of my truck. I have one in my park pack. I keep one in my bug out bag or my get home bag, and then I keep a spare one here at the house. So I have 3 or 4 floating around at any point in time. I would always stage a tourniquet. Now, when I say stage it, don't leave it in the wrapping until you need it, okay? Because think about it. If you or someone else is bleeding, you're now covered in blood and you're trying to open a plastic package. That's a bad idea. Again, skill set. I pre-stage it. What I do, I open it and thread it through the buckle. So as you can see here, it's already ready to go. So I can open it, right? I'm just gonna briefly apply it to myself. And now I've got the tourniquet on. So I could be bleeding on one hand, and because I've staged it, I can actually apply it with the one hand. Now I can start turning the windlass, apply my tension, reduce or stop the bleeding, and now I can move on. So again, having your now it's stuck on me here. Having your gear staged properly, like I do with the tourniquet, will not only allow you to deploy it quickly, it could save your life. Because again, you're trying to open a plastic bag like this one, and your hands are full of blood. That's not a good thing. And for the record, the Israeli bandage, the way it's set up, actually, the outer wrapping's kind of thin, so you can actually get if you can't get your hands on it, you can actually get your teeth on it and give it a tear and open it up. But again, stage things like the tourniquet, because the Israeli, you just unwrap and you start going. The tourniquet, you have to thread through a buckle when you get it from the packaging. And if your hands are bloody or you're injured or you're in pain, that becomes very difficult. Remember, your motor skills go downhill when you're under stress or when you're hurt. Lastly, little things, I mentioned this one before, the J's case, great little product to have, but again, having meds and not understanding their use or not understanding the application can definitely cause you harm. So make sure you get your consult, whether you get it from Jace or you get it from your own doctor, and also understand when you should or should not apply it. Again, having medical reference books, well, like this one, and again, this is more like an encyclopedia. This is the Special Operations Forces Medical Handbook. I picked that one up online. It is one of the old DoD versions that's been published commercially, but it's essentially, it's an encyclopedia of knowledge. So even at least if there's a problem and you may not know how to deal with it, you can look up by category and go, okay, this person is suffering from a headache, they're bleeding, they're sick. It even goes into detail about field hygiene, how to make a proper latrine. So having physical books like this can come in very handy. And it also enhances your skill set, because now you have a reference. So if you don't have the skill on the top of your head, you can read and learn the skill on the fly if you need to. Obviously, this would be a horrendously boring read unless you're into medicine. So you can see that they couldn't make the print any smaller. But it does give, for instance, bacterial infections, which again would go to the Jace case or any other med. You have a bacterial infection, what kind of bacteria are you dealing with, what treatment it gives, and it even says plan treatment. Disoxycyllin, I think, or alternative erythromycin. So, it gives you the recommendations for the adult body. You have to divvy up for body weight if you're dealing with kids. But again, having this is great. Having this is great. Having them together is better, because now you have a skill set reference. If you know, I need to give antibiotics, but I don't know what the hell to give, even if this book in the Jace case isn't sufficient, you have a secondary manual. You can look at the specific injury and get details as to how to apply the med for the individual. So, guys, I'm going to stop on this one, but I just want to reinforce the skill sets that we need to have in the event of, whether it's an SHTF or a day-to-day misfortune, an accident. These things happen daily. They happen hourly. Don't just have gear. Don't just watch the tubes. Read up, study up, practice if you can. Again, this is not always something that you have to stay on budget, right? So work with what you have. If you have, off-the-shelf medical wrap, practice making an ad hoc bandage or tourniquet or an Israeli bandage on yourself with the stuff you got from, I don't know, CVS, Walgreens. Do those skill sets and you're going to learn a lot, and you'll be better prepared for those emergencies that kind of pop out of the blue. So in any case, folks, this is it for this video. Again, this is just a follow-on to the skill set conversation we were talking about earlier. We talked about firearms on Friday. I'm talking about medical today. Hopefully I'll get another video out there where we can talk about more technical items that you can learn to better prepare yourself. So folks, until next time, God bless, Godspeed, and I will see you all on the next video.